Fast, efficient and affordable business-grade hosting solutions, domain registration, SSL certificates and more. We also monitor and provide website security and update services, website builds, email hosting amongst other sensational products. If you have a question about your web page or your presence on the internet in general, no job is too big or too small. Visit our website today, or better yet, contact us at blueoceanwebhosting.com.au and leave your website issues to us.
Big ones, little ones, fiddly ones, powerful ones, the ones for the car or the truck, caravan, boat, mobility scooter, solar system. In fact, for any kind of battery, go straight to Battery Central Ipswich. They'll even help you when you know what you need to power, but have no idea what'll do the job. Battery Central Ipswich, 280 Brisbane Street, West Ipswich, behind the Yellow Building. Expert advice, better batteries, best prices, every day. That's Battery Central Ipswich.
Welcome to episode 754 of the Aussie Tech Heads. I'm Jason Oakley and this is Will Topkinson. Hey, Will.
Are you sure?
No.
Because I'm not.
One of those days, huh?
Oh, it's just been so... We've had... Like, it's bad enough it's been 32, 33. I can deal with that.
Yep.
But it's been 32, 33, 98% humidity and raining.
Oh, jeez.
And, like, everything's wet. Everything you touch just... Like,
yeah.
It's just... Everything's wet.
We had one of them a couple of days ago. I went down to the shops and I hopped out of my air-conditioned car and suddenly I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Take my glasses off because they all just fogged up.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's very draining. It's very draining.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you can't pick it. Like it'll be like this morning, not a cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
And then at lunchtime, I was on the phone to a customer in the shed, and then all of a sudden I couldn't hear.
Oh, jeez.
Like it was, there's no. Hey, there's a storm coming. There's a warning. There's a few spits. No, none of that. Just
straight
like,
down.
the hell?
You'll have to speak up. Can you text me the details?
Oh, it was ridiculous. Being a big tin shed, of course.
Yeah.
But normally you get, a few spits of rain, a bit of a shower, and then the build up to the downpour.
Yeah.
Nah, none of that.
Straight in.
Just like dead set sound like someone just dumped a whole heap of gravel on the roof of the shed.
Maybe they did.
Well.
Did you go out and have a look?
So yeah, and then it stopped just as quickly as it started.
Ah.
The eerie part about it, normally, at least in my mind, when I think heavy rain and downpour, like normal light rain, showers, okay, I get that. But when in my brain, when I think heavy rain, I expect thunder and lightning.
Yep.
And it wasn't.
Just heavy rain.
And it kind of messed with my head a bit. Like, I'm expecting the thunder and the lightning, and it wasn't happening. And I'm like, okay.
It's a bit of a letdown.
Kind of glad, but still. So.
Doing all right otherwise?
Yeah, plodding along, same old,
You got
really.
your 3D printer going?
Yeah, well, that's a whole novel of events, that is. So I've got 3 3D printers now. I've got the first one I bought, which was the Delta, which is the top-down 3-arm one that prints on a circle base, and I decided that I'm going to use that one for prototyping, so I want to run that on 3mm filament, so I started upgrading that to 3mm.
Yep.
But then I ran into a block where I needed a couple of adapters to convert it to 3mm, and I already had this thing pulled apart, and I couldn't buy the adapters, so I needed to 3D print some adapters, but I didn't have a 3D printer to 3D print the adapters on. So I got one of those old, I think I call them MakerBots.
Yep.
They were pre the Ender. They look like the original Ender sort of, but they were a polycarbonate frame, and like they were, at the time they were a pretty decent printer. But I got it, and it started printing a few things that I wanted, and then it started clogging nozzles, and then I had extruder problems with that. Then the motherboard, and that ended up dying, and
Yeah.
And anyway, so then I got a Ender 3, second hand, that somebody else had already had problems with. And I thought, oh yeah, it can't be that. There's not. I mean, it's a relatively new printer. There can't be that much wrong with it.
Yep. Uh-oh.
2 years later, literally replacing like 90% of the components on the thing.
Yep.
And still not having successful prints. Like 1 in 10 would be a successful print.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And anyway, I've changed main boards, I've changed power supplies, I've changed stepper drivers, I've changed, you name it, I changed it. Basically, the only thing I didn't change was the frame, but I did pull it all apart and reassemble it and make sure it was all squared and true to make sure that wasn't a problem.
Yep.
Turns out, and because they're they have a remote extruder that goes through a PTFE tube, and the filament goes through it to the head, and it extrudes that way. And it was always having extrusion issues. I bought new hot ends and new heads and everything. Anyway, I found that Ender themselves, who's the company who made this printer, they, after a couple of years of this printer being out, they actually released a direct drive adaptation for the filament. So instead of it pushing, like the head being over, the filament coming in from over here, being pushed down a tube and going into the head, it's all self-contained in one unit now. So the filament comes straight down from the top, straight in, straight through the extruder and straight into the head. So putting that on, and then I readjusted all the voltages for the steppers, and I think I discovered one more fault there. So I think there's a combination of the old stepper motor had been overdriven so hard, had been overvolted, that it actually damaged the stepper motor, even though it tested okay. I don't think it was ever quite right.
Right.
So after putting this new assembly on, checking all the voltages, making sure all the stepper motors are being done properly, going through, tightening everything up, leveling the bed again, it printed the test print perfectly. It printed the stress print, which has got overhangs and stuff.
Yep.
Did that perfectly. It did, if you've ever watched Maker's Muse on YouTube, he's an Australian guy. He does a lot of 3D printing stuff, and he makes what he calls torture tests. They're really tight tolerance things that they print inside itself very, very close, so that you still should be able to move them at the end of the print. And I did one of the small torture tests on that, and it passed that. And then I did a 3-hour print, and it printed that. And I did another 3-hour print, and it printed that. And
Nice.
I did another 3-hour print today, and I've got it on for a 6-hour print overnight tonight. And it has just worked flawlessly,
Nice.
which is what a Ender should do, given that, like, that's what they're supposed to do. Like, they're a premium printer that you paid a premium price for to
And
have
everyone
that.
raves
do
over
it.
them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what were they? I can't remember what they were. $500 or something when they were new. Something like that, $500 or $600, I think. And then they come down to like $400 for a while.
Yep.
And I think they're down to like $250 now. But even if I bought it now at $250, I've probably spent another $4 or $5 or no, because the direct drive was nearly $200. So I've probably spent $600 on top of a $250 printer, which makes it an
Just to get it to
$850
work.
printer, which is the same printer that somebody else had that they paid $500 or $600 for. So it's now an $1,100 printer that was never an
Bloody bit of
$1,100. So.
Jeez.
But that's the thing. Like I've got this, as I said, I think it's a Maker bot or something. It's just a cheap. It's one that you bought the frame off the guys.
Yep.
They supplied you with the frame, and they gave you a parts list, and you jumped onto eBay or wherever you wanted to, and you bought all the parts and you assembled the thing yourself.
Yep.
It's still a couple $100 printer, but you expect to have problems with that because it's a hobby printer, like it's something you've assembled yourself. And my Delta, I didn't have problems with it till I created the problems. And it's a $500 printer. So you expect a $500 printer to work and a $200 or $300 printer to mostly work.
Yep.
But when you have a $500 printer that doesn't work and it costs you another $500 to make it work, you could have bought a $1,000 printer that would have worked.
Yeah. So do you get to print out the parts you wanted for your Delta now?
Well, now that I know that it can,
Yep.
I need to remember what the parts were. That was like 3 years ago. So I've got to drag the Delta out of storage and set it all back up now and
It's a
try
long
and figure out what parts it is I actually wanted to print in the first place. So
Jeez.
And honestly, it would have been cheaper just to buy a 3mm printer, because that's the whole this whole process of buying all these printers and getting them all working and stuff was to print 2 parts for this other printer that I had already.
Yeah.
So I should have just left that one, spent another $500 buying a 3mm prototyping printer and being done with it.
Yeah.
Like
Or
you
get one of those resin ones or something.
Well, yeah, an FDM. You can get a small FDM, and they're not real big. They're only, I think they're 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, something like that.
Yep.
But they're only $150. I mean, you're going to spend $100 on resin, but you get a lot of prints for that.
Yep.
And they're not huge, but I mean, if just for the average hobby person who wants to do small stuff, they're perfectly fine.
Sounds good.
And you can always break a print up and print it in multiple parts and join it anyway.
Yep.
So, if you want to do, and actually it's interesting because the FDM stuff, the fused deposition models, have come so far that a lot of hobby guys who do Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer and a lot of these models and board game style stuff, they love them because the detail is so amazing on these FDM printers.
My brother-in-law, he doesn't have one of them, but he prints all of his Warhammer stuff.
And with the FDM ones, you can do it with a normal 3D printer if you've got a really good, like a 0.2mm nozzle, and you print slow and nice 1mm layers. You can get a fairly decent model, a bit of sandpaper, touch it up, looks good.
Yeah.
But with these FDM ones, they come out looking like they've just been molded.
Yeah.
They're pristine, and they almost never fail because the technology, the way they work, it's unless there's a hardware failure in the printer, like a stepper motor stops working or the UV light doesn't fire when it's supposed to, they pretty much have to work. There isn't really an option there.
Yep. Yep.
And it's a relatively cheap way to get into it. As I said, it's only small stuff, but for that sort of stuff, you won't find. I've seen models small. Well, I used to do MechWarrior back in the day, and I remember paying $150 for a mech.
Yep.
This big. I could buy an FDM printer and the resin and print myself 100 of these guys for the same sort of money. So if it's
Big
something,
difference.
if it's something you're doing a lot, it's definitely worth looking into getting them.
You're still doing CNC stuff?
Yeah, I got small CNC, and I've got a medium size CO2 laser as well.
Yeah.
I do laser cutting, laser engraving, and CNC. I'm starting to build up some designs and prototypes at the moment for stuff to sell through the shop.
Cool.
We're going to be doing I guess emergency power out, battery backup. So imagine a box, sort of 300 by 200 sort of size, and that'll have like a 10 amp hour USB power pack. It'll have a USB torch. It'll have a little mini, one of those small little emergency radio, FM radio things with headphones. It'll have what else is in there? I can't remember. There's a couple other things in there, and there's a solar panel on top that if you leave it out in the sun during the day, it'll recharge that battery pack. All sort of in a box. So I'm gonna laser cut the box out of ply and sell them. Sell them off as emergency power kits.
Yeah,
they'll be like $50, something like that, and it'll be. You just leave it, once it's charged up, you chuck it in the cupboard. When you get a blackout, you can charge your phones and do a few bits and pieces, and you're good for basically overnight before you got to worry about it. And we're doing another one which is like a I guess a fire. It's not really a fire. Well, it's sort of a fire starter. It's more of a nighttime emergency kit. It's going to have same thing. It'll have a torch. It'll have a flint and steel. It'll have some weatherproof matches. It'll have your kindling. It'll have your everything you need to basically start a fire, and that'll be in a little box and stuff. And they basically just load it in the glove box of your car or whatever. And if you get stuck somewhere, at least you can start a fire or signal somebody or or whatever. So we're going to start doing kits like that. But that's why I wanted to get the 3D printer working, and I got to get more into the laser cutting, because I can cut all those boards out of 5mm ply and make all the boxes in-house and stuff like that, so we can custom design them to how we want them to be.
Nice.
So
you should do those joysticks like Monster Joystick that I got. With the kit came with a cardboard box kit, and you just screw everything together.
Well, it's same principle, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's good because there's a lot of versatility in stuff like that. Once you've got it jigged up, it's just a matter of putting it in. It does all the work. Obviously, there's assembly and cleanup and stuff to do, but so much easier than it was in the old days where you had to cut everything on a bandsaw. And I'm not talented enough for that.
No, neither. Funny enough.
But no, that's we're looking at doing a lot of that sort of stuff. I eventually want to have little kits. I want to have a like a rations kit and a water purifying kit and a fire starting kit and
Life straw.
Well, sort of, but you can only buy those. But you know, like an overnight ration or an overnight emergency shelter kit, stuff like that. You know, all these little bits and pieces. Just I mean, they're stocking fillers more than anything, but you never know when somebody they won't be going away for a weekend. They've just realised they've forgotten their torch and their matches, and you go, well, here you go, here's it. You know.
Well, you know what? It sounds like you currently got BCI there for Battery Central Ipswich, but this is starting to sound like BCF.
Yeah, the difference is the stuff we sell is quality. So
sounds like the kind of stuff that they have.
Well, our other ones, our other business name's What Energy Solutions.
Yep.
So a lot of the stuff will be sold under that. So
What Energy?
Yeah, What Energy? What are you talking about?
Do what, mate?
So
speaking of the battery survival stuff, I got to test my Tesla battery backup system today with the emergency power system. That worked well.
It's not really emergency power when they tell you you're going to have a blackout.
Yeah.
It's not like you've got the aircon cranking and you know.
Yeah. So a couple of days ago, I told it to keep 100% of battery for emergency. And last couple of days, it's just been raining. So I'm glad I did. Otherwise, might not have got much to charge up with.
It wouldn't have.
I had. They said the power was going to go out at 8:30 and come back on at 4, but it went out about 10 o'clock or something, and you just saw the lights in the house flicker. And then my Solar X inverter starts beeping, and it just beeped for the whole day. So I was glad I took the day off work, because I'd be sitting in the office right next to the garage listening to the damn beeping all day. But I'm up this end of the house with my headphones on, listening to Sanctuary Radio and not hearing a damn thing. And yeah, apart from a quick flicker of the lights when it changed over, I didn't even notice. And then I think they had it going about 2:30. It was all back on the grid again, and you don't notice when it clicks back to the grid. And I just checked on my phone when it was happening, and probably about 1 o'clock or something, it still had said that it still had about 9-10 hours of battery left, and didn't even touch the LG Chem battery. So it was a good test, but I said to the boss, I'm not going to work today because I don't know if the power's just going to suddenly go out, or how long the batteries are going to keep going, or what's going to happen. But yeah, it was a good, successful test for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a best case scenario too, because even though it was raining, your pack was already charged.
Yep.
And because you're expecting a blackout, you weren't using that much power, so the solar was still assisting.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be different if it was, you know.
It was 4 days ago when it was 35 degrees and I had the big crappy old air conditioner from 1970s in the kitchen going, cooling the whole house down.
Yeah, and not only that, you got to think, if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, you've still got the aircon on, your battery's now flat because it's been depleted because you've told it to use it for the first 6 hours of that night.
Yeah.
You know, you would have lost power because you don't have any power, you know. So best case scenario, it works perfectly fine, but you probably, can you set it to say only ever discharge to like 50%?
20% they reckon. Leave 20% of the battery for emergency, and the rest of it you use overnight.
Well, 20%, yeah, but if
out.
you've got the aircon running, 20% is only like an hour.
And I've got the LG Chem as well. So when the
Oh, it
Tesla
doesn't
gets
tie them
down
together.
to 0, it starts sucking it from the LG.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Does it do that by default, or like you can
Yeah.
tell it to not do that?
No.
Yeah.
That's how the electrician said he wired it up to be like that. I was watching both of the apps on my phone, and I said, it looks like this is how it happens. He said, yep, that's how I set it up, so I hope it will do that.
Yeah. So realistically, you just tell it to use the Tesla one, leave the LG one charged. So at least you've got 50% of your. It's effectively 50% of your pack.
Yep,
They're both the same size batteries, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least that's it. I mean, that's one thing a lot of people don't understand about the sort of system you've got. They go, "Oh, it's great. I've got power in a blackout." I'm like, well, you sort of do, but to have power in a blackout, you have to have the power there. If you've used the power, you don't have the power in a blackout.
That's right. Yeah.
So but by having the two battery packs, you've got the best of both worlds, because you can run them during that high peak demand where you're paying more for your power, and you still got one battery there that you can fall back on if you do get a blackout. So it works well doing it that way.
And you can set up the times that it can use the grid and stuff if it's getting low, or
you set it to like after midnight or whatever.
Yeah, and since Amber sends me an alert if something's going to peak, you can always quickly switch it over and switch it back later if you wanted to. But I usually have it going probably 7 a.m. to about 4 p.m. It just uses all solar, and then the rest of the time it's on battery.
Yeah.
And then I don't get these big spikes at 5 in the afternoon when everyone gets home and suddenly electricity costs $5 instead of 20 cents.
Yeah, I changed electricity providers, and that was, 2 months ago, 3 months? Well, at least 2 months ago.
Yep.
I haven't sent a bill yet.
Ah.
I try to log onto their online portal, and it tells me I don't have an account with them.
Ah.
Don't
tell them.
I log on to Amber, and I don't have an account with them. Okay, I'm going to account with somebody.
The only bill I really get now is the network connection fee, which they have to pay to like Energy Australia or something.
Yeah, a bit rude.
Pretty good. But also I did put together the Pi-hole on my server, and just looking at total queries from the last 24 hours, 31,500 queries, and 1,857 were blocked.
Wow.
So I just tell the router in the house to route all DNS queries through the Pi-hole server.
Yeah.
And then it looks at its cache, and if it's already got the info there, it sends that out instantly. But if it doesn't, it goes out through OpenDNS. So it's secure and fast and everything. And haven't had any problems with anything. It just works.
Nice.
And there's a guy who has what they call a tick file, where he's constantly updating it on his website, and you just set up the Pi-hole to once a day downloads a copy of his tick file and installs it into Pi-hole. So if there's some new advertising companies, or a lot of them register like 80 domains so that they can send their advertising. You block this one, so they register a new domain. They block that one. You block these 50, so they register another 10, and try and get around it all the time. So this guy just sits there and keeps it updated. And there's probably half a dozen different tick lists. I've just got his one because he's on Reddit, and you can message him and talk to him about it and get help if you had any problems. But I didn't have any problems. I just set it up how he said on his GitHub, and away it goes.
Nice.
Yeah, works really well. You go to, there's still news.com.au uses Admiral anti-ad blocking software. If I go there, it says, "Hi, it looks like you're using a blocker. Would you like to log in or pay us money?" I'm like, "No, I'll just go to a different website."
Yeah.
Every other website, no problem. And the weird thing was, this is all DNS based, right? So you don't set it up in your browser, you don't set it up on your computer. It's all on your network. If I went to news.com.au using Chrome, no, Edge was the other one that I had on here already. No anti pop up blocker. If I go there on Firefox, it says, oh, you're blocking our ads. If I go there on Edge, I don't see the ads, but it also doesn't detect that I'm blocking the ads.
We'll see if Firefox itself blocks ads by default.
I tried turning all of that off.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be something. Maybe it just knows you've got
Something
Firefox, so it's just going, hey, you're blocking ads.
Yeah.
Because I have an issue.
Firefox is that naughty thing that's always blocking our stuff.
Because I've got an issue, because I'm still using Pop, so I'm still using Linux. It's working wonderful.
Yep.
But I have an issue with Firefox that I can't do video, whether it's YouTube, whether it's embedded video, whatever.
Oh, wait,
I've installed FFmpeg. I've installed several different video drivers are supposed to fix this thing, and it just will not. It just comes up constantly saying invalid file type.
Oh, that's weird.
It's really weird. It won't play MP3s. It won't play like streaming radio. It works on Opera. It works on Chrome. It works on Chromium. It works on Midori. It works on all the other browsers. It just won't work on Firefox.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Wonder what's going on there.
I don't know. So it's a bit of a pain because I have that logged in as our work account, so I'm going to check my YouTube and check stuff like that to update the work account. Even to go to the website to look at the media stuff we got on the website, it won't load any of that.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm not sure what's going on there.
How bizarre.
So
The other thing that I managed to figure out, my Synology NAS disk station was not connecting to the network. I couldn't connect to it through the network shares. I couldn't ping it. I went to the router and had a look. It didn't exist. So I tried holding down the button on the front to try and turn it off. You do that for a few seconds and it goes into shutdown. Waited, wouldn't shut down. It just kept flashing the blue light on the front. So I pulled the power out, which I don't really want to do, but Linux is good at recovering from sudden power outages. Plug it back in. After about 5 minutes, I can bring up the web interface, log in there fine. I can SSH to it. I can map the drives, have a look around. About 10-15 minutes later, it's off the network again. Couldn't figure out what was wrong, and I didn't have time to do it. But today, since I took the day off in case of the power might go out, I thought, well, I should finally get stuck into this. So I'm Googling all over the place, and I thought, well, what I'll also do, I have a drive, X drive is mapped to there, so I can back up some of my stuff from my computer, because I've got 3 drives in the NAS. So I've got redundancy and stuff. And I thought, well, worst comes to worst, I'll copy this over to the new server that we're running our game servers stuff on. And so I started deleting a lot of stuff that I haven't used in years and has just been sitting around on drives going, one day I'll get back to that. Never did. So I thought I'll start deleting that. And then I was Googling around a lot more. And then I came across somebody said something about check the storage volume manager. And I looked in there and it said currently performing data scrubbing. I was like, well, that's a bit odd. What's data scrubbing? Sounds like something you do before you're selling your hard drive. You scrub all the data off it with the high level encryption or something. And it turns out that if it thinks the integrity of one or more of the drives in the drive storage pool is compromised, it does a data scrub where it does a byte check on every little part of data that's stored on the drives and goes through the whole lot, which is 6 terabytes all up, but four of it is usable because the rest is all redundancy. And so I saw that people said you can stop it, so I clicked on stop doing the data scrub, and for the next hour it was still connectable. I could ping it, I could SSH to it, I could map drives to it, and I'm like, well, that was it. So it got stuck in this data scrubbing, and it had been doing that for a few days. But after 15 minutes of the computer coming up when it started the data scrub, suddenly it couldn't connect to the network and everything else was shut down while it's doing this. And somebody else said they had something similar happen, and it shouldn't do that because it's something that's supposed to do in the background. And when you have a look at the page, it says status data scrubbing. This will cause an impact on this usage of this device, but it's not supposed to completely block off all use to it, and especially not for a few days. So um, I also had something that I was wondering. I had one drive in there which had failed a few months ago, and I got two new drives that I put in there to replace it. And the Synology had said this drive has been marked as bad, and we're not going to use it in the storage pool. So your storage pool was one drive until I got two more to put in. But I just left it there. I hadn't been disconnecting it or anything or taking it out because I just wanted to make sure everything was going. Once it was going, I was like, well, I'm not going to stop it now. But I took that drive out. Oh, I shut down, of course, took that drive out, started it up again. It's working, let it go for about an hour, still no problems. So I started the data scrubbing again, which is like a file system integrity check. It's been going for the last 3 or 4 hours, and it's currently 21.75% through, and the drive's still there, and everything's still working. So for some reason, one drive that was dodgy, which it had marked dodgy dead drive, not part of the pool or anything. I don't know if it was trying to data scrub that, even though it was dead, or what was going, and it was getting stuck, or what was happening. But as soon as you stop the data scrubbing, the NAS would work. Take out the drive, do the data scrub, no problem. So all I can guess is that's maybe what it was.
Sounds like fun.
Very strange. But I'm glad I got everything going again. And now I've got two places to save data on, so I've got even more redundancy.
Yeah, if you haven't got two copies, you don't have a copy.
That's right, yeah. And that got me busy because I had a SSD in the gaming server that we use that I hadn't petitioned or formatted or anything. I had a spare one, so I thought I'll whack it in there because I didn't have anything else to do with it. So today I got busy and I finally mounted it on the system after petitioning it and putting BTRFS on there and mapping it and stuff like that. So now I've got an extra 500 gig on that one that I can use for stuff.
Only person who doesn't call it butter.
Butter.
Everybody else calls it butter.
Butter file system.
Yeah. It's not. It's not even close. It's BTRFS, but everyone calls it butter, and I don't know why. It annoys me.
I'd never heard of it until I was putting Pop OS on my computer. I was like, what's a good one to get? I know ext4, but that's 100 years old. And everyone's going, well, if you want stability, ext4 is 100 years old, but it still works really well.
Yep.
Then there was, if you want to use Butter file system, you can try that out. And it also has it detects if you've got SSD and enables certain modes on it to work better for that and all sorts of stuff. And I looked on Reddit and a lot of people had said, yeah, really love this file system. I always use it from now on. It's stable, has no issues. So I thought, stuff, if anything happens, I can always just rebuild the drive again. But no, I haven't had any problems
I'm using
yet.
it under... I'm still using XT4 for my system drive, but I'm using Butter for what would be the recovery, the temp, the whatever the other
Swap.
ones are. Swap.
Yep.
I'm using it for those because, if you have a recovery petition with that, it can... Apparently, you only need like 10% of your drive allocated to a recovery petition, and it can recover like almost the entire drive in that 10% that it's got or something.
Nice.
So I don't know how it does it, but yeah.
Magic.
Yeah, lots and lots of magic. So,
Shall we do some news?
suppose we can try.
We'll do the big one. Microsoft is buying Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion, which is 96 billion Australian. The biggest gaming industry deal in history as global technology giants stake their claims to a virtual future. The deal is Microsoft's biggest ever and is set to be the largest all-cash acquisition on record. It'll bolster its firepower in the booming video game market, where it takes on leaders Tencent and Sony. It also represents the American multinational's bet on the metaverse, virtual online worlds where people can work, play, and socialize, as many as the biggest competitors are already doing. Gaming is the most dynamic and exciting category in entertainment across all platforms today and will play a key role in development of metaverse platforms, Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella said. The deal comes at a time of weakness for Activision, maker of games such as Overwatch and Candy Crush. Before the deal was announced, its shares had slumped more than 37% since reaching a record high last year, hit by allegations of sexual harassment of employees and misconduct by several top managers. The company is still addressing those allegations and said on Monday it had fired or pushed out more than 36 employees and disciplined another 40 since July. CEO Bobby Kotick said Microsoft approached him about a possible buyout, would continue as CEO of Activision following the deal, although the Wall Street Journal reported he is expected to leave after it closes. In a conference call with analysts, Microsoft boss Nadella did not directly refer to the scandal, but talked about the importance of culture in the company. It's critical for Activision Blizzard to drive forward on its renewed cultural commitments, he said, adding the success of this acquisition will depend on it. So Microsoft's going to be pretty big for gaming stuff.
Well, isn't Facebook getting in trouble for buying all social media platforms?
Yep.
So is Microsoft going to get in trouble for buying all the gaming platforms?
You would think so. And I think I read that Nvidia wasn't allowed to buy ARM because they thought they were going to be too big a juggernaut, so that got blocked. So they're off. They're starting their own CPU company. They're like, well, if we can't have yours, we'll build our own with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah.
In fact, forget the blackjack.
Well, I mean, it's not like It's not like they haven't got experience building chips.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
And everyone needs everyone to build chips.
Well, at the moment, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they've done all right with. So everyone thought once they bought Minecraft they were going to kill it.
Yep.
But they've done pretty well with that so far. Okay, they've done some
silly things.
They've made some questionable choices, but for the most part, it's been pretty decent handling of it. Yeah.
And they're going to own Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and Minecraft, StarCraft, and Warcraft.
Yeah, but it's funny because they obviously got their Xbox platform, but like Crash Bandicoot and all those other games were all like Sony
exclusive.
Yeah, they're all they're all like
not
PlayStation
anymore.
games and stuff. So it's Does that mean they're going to release an emulator for the Xbox?
The Xbox fridge. Apparently, their sales are going off crazy because Sony can't make PS5s. And Sony's like, well, if we can't make PS5s, we're going to do more PS4s and sell them.
I mean, they're selling for like $100 or something. So it's not that bad. If you're just a casual gamer who, plays with your kids occasionally or has older games anyway.
Yep.
I mean, the PS4 is not exactly a slow machine.
No.
I mean, it still had virtual reality. It had the whole position tracking and everything in it. So it's not a bad thing.
PSVR 2 coming out for the PS5.
Yeah.
Supposed to have better trackings and stuff.
So we'll see what happens there. But
should be interesting. Microsoft needed some injection of some really good IP for Xbox and PC. I think.
But you don't think of them as a gaming. I mean, I guess they always have. Because they did Age of Empires, and they did it's not like they've never done
Simulator.
games. Yeah, Microsoft Flight Sim.
It's the number one.
Then there was what was the game
Solitaire.
Yeah. No, and Pinball. What was the one on the demo? In the Windows 95 demo CD, there was that game, the flying one. You fly the spaceships around.
Sure.
It was on the same one as like the Weezer demo and all that. I can't think what it's called now. How can I
love that Weezer
Hover?
one. I used to play that all the time.
Was it called Hover? I think it might have been.
Probably.
But yeah, so I mean, they're not exactly new to games. They've done games. It's just games have always been like an
Side thing.
afterthought to a, been an end to a means rather than a means to an end. So it's interesting now that they've gone all in on gaming companies. The upside is, at least what it means is that the games that they do develop now should be optimized for their platform,
Certainly
whether that
hope
be
so.
Windows or Xbox.
Or both, because they're building Xbox Game Pass into Windows now. Going to be basically the same operating system. They're going to have the direct storage from Xbox come to Windows 11.
It's kind of annoying because there's Forza Motorsport 4 and 5.
Yep.
And they're effectively Xbox games that run in the Windows environment, and they're kind of half ported. But you've got to have an Xbox account. You can buy the game for $100, but you've also got to have an Xbox account.
Game Pass.
It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
So that could be. See, I haven't ported across my Mojang. Every time I log into Minecraft,
I have it. It says that to me too.
Like, please.
I accidentally clicked the wrong button the other day, and it started redirecting me to migrate. And I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that.
I don't know how much longer they're going to let me get away with it, but for now,
overnight, but it will happen.
the problem is I can't. We've got 2 that we can't transfer because I don't have active email addresses attached to them anymore. You need the active, like Obsidian Loft. We can never transfer that across because that email domain doesn't exist anymore.
Don't tell anyone; they'll register it.
So, but that's what I mean. Like, so I don't know how you're supposed to. And the second character that I use, I don't have that active domain for that anymore either.
Yep.
So I don't know how you're supposed to. Maybe there'd have to be a way around that. Surely, they can't expect somebody to have a. Like if you've got a Fred at Telstra.com and then 2 years later you change to Optus. Well, I mean, they can't expect you to have.
I did that.
Yes,
I just changed to Optus.
But they can't expect you to keep your domain. A lot of people change domains when they change jobs or they change. Because a lot of people use their work email. They don't have a personal one.
Yeah.
So surely there'd have to be a way to change that.
People might still have their America Online account.
I've still got my Aussie Mail one.
Whoa.
I had a customer the other day come in with an Aussie Mail one. I'm like, wow.
Really?
I think it's hosted by WAPT or something now, but it still exists.
iNet boredom.
Or is it iNet? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it still exists because they'll tell me about it. I'm like, okay, I'll have to go back and check mine. Yeah, mine was still there. I'm like, wow. So, I mean, I've had my Gmail account that long. I bid on eBay for one of the beta invites.
Yeah.
Back when that was a thing. I paid like $50 or $60 for it.
Yeah.
Just to get a beta invite.
I told you I hacked my friend's one.
Yeah.
Because he got a Gmail. He's like, haha, I got Gmail in the beta and you didn't. So I was like, oh, I'll try and log into his account. What's your mother's maiden name? I don't know. Simpson, like Homer Simpson. Yes, that's correct. Click here to change your password. I said, dude, I'm in your account. He's like, what? Are you sure? I was like, yeah. He said, prove it. I said, well, here's your new password you'll have to log in with. And also, I just sent you an email from yourself. He's like, bloody hell, I've got to change my forgot your password question now.
Well, what was worse back when, because I had my Hotmail account first, obviously, because most people did. But the problem with the Hotmail accounts, they weren't secure, because you could just copy what was in the address bar in any browser, copy it to Notepad, put on a floppy, because you're allowed to have floppies in the library back in the day, take it to a completely separate computer, or take it home, or take it somewhere else, paste that back into a browser on another computer, and it would take you straight into the into the Hotmail account. Like, it was using the browser address to direct you to the account. There was no, like, you had your credentials, but your credentials were included in the thing. So if you had the address on the bar, you could get straight into the account.
Oh, you don't have to worry. Somebody else has already registered obsidianloft.com.
Great.
It's owned by Namebright servers. You can purchase it off them.
It's a holding account.
Yeah. And they've registered up to the 12th of May this year.
It's all right. We can get it back under prior art because we've already had it.
Try. Yeah.
So, speaking of weird things, well, okay, we are now. FedEx, they asked the FAA to let it install anti-missile lasers on its cargo planes.
Okay, then.
So with the right military equipment, a single person can target a plane from 3 miles away using a heat-seeking missile. While such a nightmare is a rare occurrence, FedEx has applied to the FAA seeking approval to install a laser-based anti-missile defense system on its cargo planes as an added safety measure. FedEx request that the Federal Aviation Administration filed on January 4th didn't come completely out of left field. In 2008, the company worked in Northrop Grumman to test its anti-missile laser-based defense system on 12 of the shipping company's cargo planes over a year. At the time, Northrop Grumman announced that the system is ready to be deployed on civilian aircraft, although no commercial orders have been placed. FedEx application to allow it to install anti-missile systems on Airbus model A321 doesn't specifically mention Northrop Grumman's hardware, so the shipping company could now be working with another company. But the proposed hardware is basically the same as what tested back in 2008, which is scheduled to be published in the Federal Register on January 18th. FedEx cites several incidents abroad where civilian aircraft were fired upon by man-portable? Is that a word?
I guess.
Air defense systems, which are nearly impossible to detect given the range of operation, but undoubtedly a serious threat when operating aircraft in parts of the world. The biggest problem with the FedEx application seems to be the FAA's design standards for transport category airplanes did not envisage that the design feature could project infrared laser energy outside the airplane. The FAA's design standards are inadequate to address this capability. As a result, the defense system is being considered a novel and unusual design feature, and as such will be subjected to severe special safety regulations given how dangerous intense infrared light can be to the skin and eyes of persons on the aircraft, on the ground, or on other aircraft. Why didn't you say in an aircraft instead of anyway. These regulations will include the ability to completely disable the system while on the airplane on the ground to prevent inadvertent operation. So, yeah, I mean, I was unaware that, surface-to-air missiles was such a huge threat to FedEx, but
Apparently so.
it must
It's
be coming.
not just their own stuff, it's other people now.
I was going to say, it must be coming from like US Postal or USPS or something. Trying to take out the competition. But I mean,
That's one way to do it.
Seriously, where do you stop that downhill spiral?
Yep.
Okay, so one lot of planes has got laser-based anti-missile defense system. What exactly is it? I mean, I get. So a lot of planes now have a laser targeting system. So if somebody shines a laser in the pilot's eyes, it can detect where that comes from.
Yep.
That's one thing. But this is a missile defense system, which means if somebody shoots a missile at it, it actively deploys countermeasures to whether it's chaff, whether it's heat-seeking missiles, whether it's whatever.
Yep.
I mean, how do you... I can just see it now, like one of the defense mechanisms, they just open the cargo doors and all the packages just fall out.
Good luck getting one of them. Meep, meep, I'm out of here.
Of all the things that FedEx could do to improve their productivity, I really can't see that being one of them, honestly.
They got too much money to spend by the sound of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a $12 part, So that's
Something just going to
get
buy tomahawks or something in the future.
Well, that's it. Just have a F-111 flying beside the airplane and deploy it if it needs it.
Yeah.
They're going cheap now. The Air Force aren't using them anymore.
No.
They're sitting in a boneyard somewhere.
With our submarines.
yeah. Probably hanging out together playing cards.
Uber has snapped up Australian peer-to-peer car-sharing platform Car Next Door for an undisclosed sum. Car Next Door started in 2012 as a way for people to rent out private vehicles when they are otherwise not in use. Uber said in a statement that post-acquisition, Car Next Door will report into Uber's Australian team, but it will otherwise operate independently with its existing leadership remaining focused on building and scaling their technology in more cities across Australia. Uber Australia and New Zealand General Manager Dom Taylor said 2022 marked 10 years since both Uber and Car Next Door launched in Australia. A lot has changed in that time, but one thing has stayed constant, a shared vision that we need to make transport not just safe, convenient, and affordable, but also sustainable. Taylor said that the Car Next Door would give Uber users something they had not had access to before, access to a car for mid-range and longer distance trips. This deal will change that and mean the Uber platform can be a reliable and convenient alternative to the choice to own a car. Car Next Door's CEO and co-founder Will Davies said the deal would help the company scale up our ambitions and look to move Australians away from over-reliance on the private car.
Yeah, I mean, other countries have had it for quite a while. We're a bit slow in that regard. So, but a lot of countries have had it for quite a while, and a lot of them are starting to ban it now. So,
how does your insurance go when somebody else is driving your car?
That's why they're starting to ban it. Because technically, well, you can, when you insure your vehicle, you can insure it for anybody to drive it. But if you don't have your policy set up correctly, then if anybody other than you is driving it, your premium's a lot more.
Yeah.
So you can
have to make sure that your money you make from loaning your car out offsets the premium.
Yeah, and you've got to have some, like if it's under 25, it's higher again. And
who's going to smoke in there, or?
And this is a lot of the issues they have. And a lot of countries are just banning it now because of those exact reasons.
Go through a red light or speed, who gets the ticket?
That's right, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, then again, everybody said Uber would never succeed here. So
yeah, apparently it has.
Uber's doing really well for himself. They're basically just
not bad for a company that doesn't have any employees.
Well, that was their success point. I mean, they basically just pay contractors. It's up to the contractors to meet the criteria required. Now, it's no different than anybody who hires a contractor or a tradesman. You're employing them based on the fact that they're able to do the job to fulfill the legal requirements. It's not on you, it's on them.
Yeah.
That's basically how Uber operates, which taxi companies couldn't and still can't get their heads around. They still can't figure out that by taking the emphasis off the company and giving it to the contractor, you can save a lot of money because it's not your problem,
And the guy doesn't have to pay off a brand new car over the next 10 years.
Yeah, and the thing is, if somebody wants to do it, then they might get them and their brother and their uncle or something involved, and they might all go in to buy a car, and they just run the car 24 hours between them, So that's up to them what they want to do. So it's yeah, we'll see. I don't have. I mean, I have some issues with Uber, but realistically, I have a lot less issues with them than I do with many other companies. So I hope they do all right in some regards. It's like even ordering food. You've got Uber, you've got DoorDash, you've got Menulog, you've got what's the new one? Kanga Food.
It's like Doo or something.
Yeah, there's Didi. Yeah. There's like
Doo-doo.
5 or 6 here.
Can I get the doo-doo for dinner?
Can I have the doo-doo platter? There's like 5 or 6 of them now, and I occasionally will do like Menulog. The other ones is just completely useless. Menulog can be okay when they have their specials, but 99% of the time I'll just use Uber. You pay a bit more, you pay a service fee, but if there's ever an issue with the meal, you file a complaint. Like, I have never had an issue. I literally file a complaint. 10 seconds later, they've put the money back in my account.
No.
Like, they don't ask for photos. They don't ask for this. They just go, yep, no worries, here you go. Whereas the other ones, like Menulog, it took me 2 weeks
Jeez.
just to like it wasn't worth the hassle, honestly, which is I guess what they hope
Yeah.
people say, because it was like, I think they were missing like a drink and a packet of chips or something out of the meal. It was a couple of bucks.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, screw it. I thought it was like Uber. You just type in what's done and it's done. Then they wanted photos of the missing items, which I love.
Here's
that.
my empty hand.
Yeah, it's like PayPal's been doing that to me lately too.
Yep.
I filed a complaint. Is that AliExpress has been horrible lately. I'm not ordering off them anymore. The amount of problems I've had lately with stuff not being, or stuff either being broken or just being shafted with the quantities.
Yep.
And I filed a thing against them saying I ordered 10, they give me 6, and they, oh, can you send us a photo of the missing 4?
No.
So I sent them a photo of the Fantastic Four. And they go, what's this? I said, well, they've been missing for ages. I said that maybe they've been out looking for it. Then they realised what they had said.
Yeah.
And they said, well, can you send us a photo of the 6? I'm like,
How does that even
But-
prove anything?
that makes even less sense than the last question you asked me. Then they said, well, can you show us, can you send us a video of them not working? I'm like, so you want me to plug a faulty electrical device
Yep.
into a perfectly functioning phone, like
Destroy
a $3 electrical device into an $1,100 phone, to prove that the $3 electrical device doesn't work?
Yep.
Not gonna happen. Let's just. But
it's too much.
same with the food for menu log and that. It took 3 weeks to get like $6 back. Like, it's just because Uber goes, hey, oh, your chips are cold, or you have your $30 back. It's like,
Yeah.
no, okay. So we'll see. I've even done it with taxi ride.
Yep.
The driver took the wrong, even though I told him to go one way, he took the wrong turn and ended up getting stuck on a one-way street and having to turn around. It cost me an extra like $5 because he didn't do as I told him. And I filed a thing with Uber for taxis, and they go, oh yeah, no worries. Oh yeah, I see you're claiming like $5. Here, have your whole fare back.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Fine.
That's how you get repeat customers.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never had a problem using them because of that.
Yep.
I'll now actively use Uber when I can over a normal taxi or over anything else or over food delivery, even if it does cost me occasionally a little bit more than somebody else, because I know that if something goes wrong, it's not going to be a problem.
Yep.
So
It's worth it.
So yeah, I was thinking. I remember reading an article back in like 8 years ago, or something like 2014 or something like that, and it was so when they upgraded and added a new module to the space station, one of the things they added to it was a 3D printer, because they work in 0G, because they don't rely on gravity to print. They rely on adhesion. And actually, if you want to trip yourself out for a little bit, if you actually own a 3D printer and you're in the middle of printing something, grab it and turn it upside down and it'll continue to print. It's the weirdest thing to watch. It messes with you. But yeah, so they have a 3D printer on there, and they had various, though it was easier to send packs of rolls of filament to the space station than send 47 little C-clips and little bits and pieces and hose retainers and stuff like that. So they did that. It's a lightweight way of doing it. And so they printed all these little bits and pieces, and then they actually had an issue with I can't remember exactly what it was. They had an issue with solar panels or something like that, and one of the astronauts had lost like the 4mm socket or whatever it was that goes on this thing.
Yep.
So they contacted NASA, and NASA actually designed this ratchet spanner, and they emailed them the file. This is the first file that had ever been printed externally. So they had a SD card with files on it that they were using to print stuff, but this was the first one. This was actually emailed to them, and they printed it off and used this like ratchet spanner thing in space to tighten up a bolt that needed to be tightened. So it was like a
Brilliant.
practical use for it. But they're using them more and more, and it's to the point now where they actually do a lot of upgrades with their printer, including upgrading the printer, because you can use a printer's like a lathe that you can use the device to upgrade the device.
Yep.
But in the last few years, there's been the last like 2 years in particular, there's been a huge increase. So if you know about 3D printing, the main ones you'll know about is PLA, which is the most common one that almost everybody uses. It's the most forgiving, doesn't need a heated bed, prints at 200 odd degrees, relatively easy to work with. And there's ABS, which is a bit harder to work with, needs a heated bed, but it's also relatively common. But now there's all these other ones. There's Peak and PEC and Puck and SVU, and there's like, I don't know, there's like 400 different types of filaments now.
Yep.
But on the space station now, they've gone from the good old PLA that they were using, polylactose acetate, something like that, I think it is. They've gone to carbon fiber PEEK now. So PEEK, is it PEEK or PEC? Because there's two. Hang on, let's make sure I'm talking about the right one. No, PEEK is the new one they're using, which is, it's carbon fiber, and it's almost like steel. Like after you've printed the thing, it's metal hard. It's fire resistant. It's heat resistant. It's radiation resistant. It's chemical resistant. It's basically everything that you would expect metal to be, effectively. Okay, it's a bit hard to work with. It needs a print temperature of about 410 degrees, which is twice as hot as most printers will actually even go. It needs a bed temperature of like 150 degrees in an enclosure. So the whole enclosure has to be kept at like 150 degrees to work with. And it needs a hardened steel. Well, it needs a special tool steel that's annealed at a certain temperature, because the standard, being carbon fiber, a standard brass nozzle would chew out in no time, and a normal hardened steel would chew out because they anneal at about 400 degrees, so it would take the hardening off it. So when you buy this roll of filament for $750 US per kilo, they give you a couple of these tool steel nozzles to go with it. But what it means is they're using this every time they do a resupply mission up to the space station. They're sending this up there now. And what it means is if they need a tool, or they need to make a certain size bolt or screw or nut or a component for something, they literally can print steel, effectively print a metal structure or something that has most of the properties of metal.
Yep.
So if they need clips or clamps, or they need to make another tool, or they need to make a vise, or whatever they need to do, they can literally print it on board the space station now. So for the sake of taking a couple of kilos of filament up there, instead of taking 20 kilos worth of tools, because they're not exactly, obviously, I can't remember what the statistics were, but it was something like $100,000 for every pound or something that you add in weight. Something ridiculous it costs to launch. But yeah, so you send a couple of spools of this up there, and they can print whatever they need to print now. So it's gone from just a hobby thing that you can use to print cute little pot plants and figurines, to an actual production quality. And they're actually using it in the medical industry too, because it is chemical resistant and heat resistant. It can be sterilized. So they're using it a lot for making one-off or limited run items to use in hospitals and operations and stuff like that, because you can sterilize it. So yeah, it's amazing now given that 10 years ago, nobody knew what a 3D printer was. 8 years ago, the average, maker knew about them and wished to have them. 5 years ago, most of the makers actually got them. So realistically, we're talking for a product that's been mainstream for about 5 years. In the last 2 years, there's been over 100 different types of filament developed specifically for 3D printers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of industries that really have a 3-year window that have gone from being unheard of to being massively manufactured for. And okay, it's expensive, but they can't, like, the demand's outstripping the supply. They can't keep up with the people who want these. Because there's suddenly, like, people are printing, they're printing custom intake manifolds for vehicles. They're printing custom heads for old motorbikes and old cars that you can no longer get components for. And okay, it sounds expensive. $750 a kilo sounds like a lot of money for a filament, but the thing is, if you were to get a block of aluminium machined, you're paying for the block of aluminium first before it gets machined. You're paying for that, which would be more than, a kilo of aluminium is not a real big block. Then you're paying for the design, development, and machining on top of that. You're easily up a few $1,000s, whereas for the sake of $700, you can prototype something or even permanently print something. So the prototyping industry, the retrofitting industry, they're going gangbusters over this stuff. They love it. They're using it for so much stuff now. It's I remember copping flack 6 or 7 years ago saying that, this is going to be the next big thing. Everyone's like, no, it's not. It's a novel. It's a novelty. It'll wear off. Nobody's going to find a use for any of this stuff.
That'll never take off.
Yeah, it's like, nobody needs more than 64K of RAM, So that whole mindset all over again. Nobody wants a mouse with a tail.
Crazy.
What was it? No, nobody needs a mouse. That's right. There wasn't.
I like the one that he says, okay, move the mouse. He said, no, it's a hamster. He's like, what do you mean? He said, it hasn't got a tail anymore, so I think it's a hamster. Okay, move the hamster and double click on the icon.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that, actually. So,
That's
yeah.
it for me.
Yeah, that'll do me. It was a relatively slow news week this week.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the Aussie Tech Head Show. We found at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, and Coffee. Email us wheel or woolog at aussietechheads.com.au and go to aussietechradio.com. 24/7 playback of tech-related shows. See you next time.
Bye.
Hey, I had a bad day, and I wondered how it tastes, so I ate, and then I served myself a second plate. Hey, I had a bad week, and I wonder if it's sweet, so I'll eat, 'cause I deserve to give myself a treat. Sadness tastes like French fries, and anger tastes like wine. They're only grapes, but give them time. Hey, I had a bad night, so I wrapped it up in pie and let it bake. So all my feelings taste like tender flake. Oh joy, my mom just called and she's appalled because my dad don't want a spoon. I'll take that spoon and put some ice cream on my afternoon. But guilty tastes like noodles, and lonely tastes like bread. But toast can make a loyal friend. Yup. Everything is wonderful, yeah. So walk it off, circle the block. The cookies and cream are starting to talk to me. I'm just crazy, but crazy tastes so good. Crazy tastes so nice. Crazy tastes like never had to go outside.